Reading with your kids.
Hey, so great to see you. Come on in. Hi, my name is Jedley, and this is the Reading with Your Kids podcast. We are coming to you from the beautiful neighborhood of Reedville in the southwest corner of Boston, Massachusetts. We are so delighted that you're part of our beautiful Reading with Your Kids family. That's what we're all about, helping families grow closer through the beauty of reading. Please be sure to subscribe to the show on the iHeartRadio app, on Spotify, Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, Ghana, Himalaya, wherever you find your podcast. Our guest today is the author of maybe he's the zookeeper of the Odd Zoo. His name is Jeff Williams. Before we begin, we want to make sure that authors know all about our Reading with Your Kids Certified Great Read program. This is a wonderful program that has helped so many authors throughout the world. We have a panel of teachers, parents, and kids, and if they believe that your book is worthy of 4 or 5 out of 5 stars, it becomes a certified great read. Now, this is a wonderful program for a number of reasons, most of all because it's so difficult to help your book stand out. There are literally thousands of books that are published every single, you thought I was going to say year. Every single month. There are thousands of children's books published every single month. And to stand out, to get noticed amongst that crowd, on top of all the books that have already been published, all those classic fairy tales, all those classic picture books, all those classic middle grade novels, to help a brand new book from a new author stand out, that's a challenge, especially now where school visits aren't happening, library visits aren't happening, book signings aren't happening. The Reading with Your Kids Certified Great Read program, that's happening, and it could happen for you. Go to our website, readingwithyourkids.com, click on the Authors Click Here button, scroll down to the Certified Great Read tab. Check it out. It's really easy. It's a great, affordable way to help bring attention, positive attention, to your wonderful children's book. Joining us on the line right now from Seattle in the state of Washington, he is the author of Odd Zoo and many other great stories. Please welcome to the show, Jeff Williams. Jeff, how are you?
I'm doing well. It is a pleasure to finally speak with you, Jed. Thank you.
Yes. I'm really delighted that you're here. I can't wait for you to tell us about Odd Zoo. What a great title.
Well, it does. I like saying it. And when I was working on it, the editor I was working with said, I don't know about that title. And then he finally said, yeah, I get it. That works for me. And I had this weird, symmetrically it works for me. There's these repeated O's and the words just stacked on top of each other. But that's just the title. It's an ABC book about all these unusual animals, and I ended up writing poems for each of them, and there's a lot more to the story.
That's awesome. Yeah, titles are one of those things. It can absolutely make or break a book, a movie, a song. That hook that just kind of grabs people's attention.
I agree, and I've got a background. Spent many years as a marketing copywriter, as an editor, as a communications guy, and finally feel like I hit my stride, but that is very much on my mind. What am I going to call it? How am I going to capture attention? And then, once you capture attention, it's incumbent on the writer to deliver on it and tell a good story.
It's interesting. You talk about, there are many different types of writing. Obviously, there are different genres of books and whatnot, different audiences. But then there's copywriting where you're writing advertisement, that you're writing words that are meant to grab someone and get them to convince them to part with their money and purchase something. And a lot of authors of books kind of, I don't know if they look down their nose, but they think, I don't do that. I am writing stories. I'm writing literature. But what a lot of those authors don't understand is that if they can't after they finish their beautiful work of literature, if they can't put together words that are going to convince people to buy their book, the book is going to sit on the shelf.
I totally understand that, and I'm of two minds of it, and I have made peace, I think, with the copywriting aspect of it, and I totally get where it can verge into crass commercialism, and in my experience, the best kinds of copywriting are helping people become their best selves. And in the advertising literature and the marketing literature I read, that's what the really good businesses are doing, and the good marketers. It's like helping people live into their best selves. And so if you take that into the world of storytelling, there's the storytelling itself. And storytelling, like good copy, has to have a protagonist and a villain, and it has to vary in cadence, and the language has to be rhythmic and, poetic in the best way. And that's in the construction of the story. And ours in particular, we're really trying to make them succeed at being read aloud and just a delight to say. So I'm always, after I write, I'm reading them aloud to just see how they flow. Mm-hmm. And if I can make myself laugh, then I feel like I've done something right. Yeah. But the other piece of it too is just, writing the copy around, when you're done with the book, there's that aspect nowadays, especially, where many writers then have to sell and try and find their audience. It's challenging, it's interesting, it's uncomfortable, but it's a puzzle that I like trying to sort out as well.
Yeah. I love that image that, it's a puzzle. And, as an author, you're putting together this puzzle, and part of the puzzle is the story, and then working with the editor, and if it's a picture book, working with an illustrator or creating the illustrations, and then there's the marketing piece, and they're all very important. And if one is missing, then the puzzle doesn't get solved. Exactly. And you know what a fun piece of solving that puzzle is that you don't do it on your own. I love this has happened to me a number of times with the stories I've written, and continues to, and now I look forward to it, where I'll write something and the illustrator or the designer will come back with their concept of what the image should be, or what the through line in a particular story should be. And suddenly it becomes this dance, this collaboration. And I like handing the story text to an illustrator and saying, okay, I like your work. Here's generally what I'm thinking. Do what you want with it. And then it comes back to me, and I'll be making changes, maybe based on where the text goes on the page, or they're telling aspects of the story that, maybe I don't need to use as many words as I was. And so it becomes this collaboration. And that happens as well with of course, the editorial process. It's just a delight. Yeah. Tell us, you're mentioning in Odd Zoo, we're going to be meeting a bunch of really crazy animals. What kind of animals are we going to meet? Well, there are loads of alphabet books out there. And I was just a few years ago noodling on, I like thinking about like the unsung heroes of the world, whatever it is. I mean, we just wrote a book called Messy Blessings. That's going to come out in February, about saying blessings for all the ordinary things in your life, or even the things that drive you a little crazy, like cactuses or traffic or something. So the unsung heroes in Odd Zoo were. It started out as like, well, could I write about an ant? A is ant, B is bug, C is whatever. But as it evolved, it changed, like writing stories so often does. And it became about unusual animals, and unusual to, North America. Because if you go to Australia or Madagascar, like, well, what are you talking about? There's a fossa here, there's a, quokkas, no big deal. So the kind of animals are, we start with axolotl, bonobo, catamounts, dowitcher, and just go from there. So I tried to pick ones that were interesting to me, and they're all unusual for the most part, except for the letter M, where I thought, you know what? I don't know that anybody's ever written a poem
in a children's book about a maggot. So our M animal is a maggot. And that's the one people remember.
Wow. You know, as you're speaking, a memory came to me. We host international kids in our home, and I remember we had a couple of young Japanese women with us at the time, and they looked out into our backyard, and they were fascinated by squirrels. And they were so excited. And I'm like, they're like rats. We're trying to get rid of them. There's so many of them in our backyard. But they were they thought it was amazing, and it seemed so odd to me. And then we were just down in Costa Rica, and we were in the rainforest, and their version of a squirrel came out. I don't know what the animal was, but it looked like a kind of a raccoon monkey kind of hybrid kind of thing. And the people in Costa Rica were just like, oh yeah, that's it's a pest. And I'm like, yeah, but it looks really cute.
Isn't that great though? To put yourself in out of context, mm-hmm. or to have somebody come into your context who's not from the area, and even traveling around different parts of the U.S. Or we can try and cultivate that sense of seeing or curiosity or appreciation or wonder, whatever it is, in kind of the ordinary things. And sometimes when I'm doing my journaling exercises in the mornings, just noodling around for ideas, like, oh, what can I'll just find some ordinary object to write about and see if I can find something interesting to say. And it just feels like such an enriching way to be, to move through the world. And then, and of course, after writing this book, I feel these little connections to places that I didn't feel before, to Australia, to Madagascar, and different geographic regions of the U.S. Like, oh, this is, it's connected and it's good and it's delightful.
Yeah. I gotta ask, and I don't mean to put you on the spot, but the poem about a maggot.
Yeah.
Can you give us a little flavor of that off the top of your head?
Wormy, squishy, wormy, wet. No one wants you for a pet. When you grow up, you'll be a fly, you'll play and poop, and then you'll die. So, that may be like the best thing I ever write.
That is.
That's fine.
That is. I'm telling you, that could get you the poet laureate spot.
Right. That's what I'm aiming for. At least of the insect world.
Well, I'm telling you, there's lots of beautiful poems out there, but if you want to get a kid interested, especially when I was a kid, if you want to get that kid interested in reading, that's the poem that would hook me.
People say like, well, who are you writing for? And there's a lot of talk about age groups and vocabulary levels, and I'm aware of that. I'm aware of writing for kids, but I'm also writing for the kid in myself too. And there's a part of me I just thought, okay, this made me laugh. But there's another piece of the Uadzu story that I'd love to share if
Sure.
we have a moment for it. Well, so I'm writing the books, but I'm also working with a business partner, and we've created a publishing company around it. Mm-hmm. And as you know, it's like you try and find a community, people that respond to your work and that you can serve, which is really important. And so we made Uadzu available for a free download, and gosh, it's been downloaded almost 20,000 times around the English-speaking world. And so suddenly, and I'm sending out an email every week with free stories, new stories that are coming up, or chapters of longer stories. And for the Christmas holiday, of course we're non-secular, but for Christmas holiday we had a poem about a blobfish, that really ugly fish that lives deep under the water off Australia. But what's happened is that people are writing and telling me stories about their experience virtually over Zoom calls with family members, or a classroom in Phoenix, or Tasmania, or a woman with whose son is blind and autistic, but was laughing at the rhythm and rhymes of some of the poems in Inuadzu. But one of the ones that tickled me the most was there's a fiber artist in South Africa, in Johannesburg, and she said, "I'd love to make fiber art, crochet animals out of some of the animals in Inuadzu." And I said, "Yeah." And so she's got her first animal is a quokka sewing pattern, and she's got it just about ready. And so when it's there, she'll share it with me, and we can send it to the people on our in our community. But that's all great. That's fun. But what's really exciting is I feel like now I've got this connection to South Africa that I never had before, and a friend and friends around the world.
It really is amazing that we're living in this time. Well, we're living in this time right now where we're all locked down and whatnot. But we're living in a time where we have technology that enables us to share our work for free. To if we want, that was impossible. Because, before the internet, before Kindles and PDFs and laptops that could read those digital books, someone would have to pay to have a book printed, a story printed. So it would cost somebody money. You're able to put your book out there, to get it out to 20,000 people. Amazing to get it out to 20,000 people all over the world, to inspire somebody in South Africa to create something based on a character in your book. It's something that I could never have dreamed of when I was a kid, and it's just so amazing. And I think about what's the world going to be like for my grandkids, and what kind of possibilities are going to be in their lives.
I didn't dream of those possibilities either. I think we're of the same generation basically, and it does make me hopeful. It's certainly the power of technology is a double-edged sword, but I am unbelievably thrilled that we get to share stories with people all around the world, and to get excited about promoting reading aloud, and sharing our belief that reading aloud with kids is going to change the world for the better. And here we've got these stories to share with you, and we hope you like them. And if people do, maybe they'll buy some of those stories in a book format. But if they don't, we're still sharing stories. And not everybody can afford it. Kids' books are, at times, their picture books especially can be pricey for people. But here's a way of sharing story and separating out, another aspect of the technology is that it allows us to separate out the story from the book. And so, maybe people can't afford books, or they can't get to the library like they used to, but they can at least share the stories. Maybe they print out a PDF, or they just read it off their device or whatever, and they have that in front of them. It's part of the bedtime ritual. It's story time, and it does all those great things that sharing stories do. And so maybe, there's these two countervailing trends of technology and COVID, and one leads us toward misery and isolation and separation, and all the nasty things we've seen in the past year. But this, there's another one too that's reaching out and connecting us, and certainly I hope the latter one prevails.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's just as you're speaking, this idea of sharing stories. And the ability to share stories around the world, it wasn't all that long ago where, a story just went across the campfire. And that was as far as a story could go. Now a story can go all across the world. As an author, that must thrill you. Yeah,
it thrills me, and it's, there's a writing test. How, try and articulate what that means exactly. I just saw, a little clip of an old TV interview you did, and you talked about kind of your epiphany, right? You were at a church camp, I believe, and you were inspired to go into the work that you were doing. And I think there's a moment where you do what you finally give yourself permission, perhaps, is a way to phrase it, to do the thing that you like to do. And there's a certain cachet around, saying I work for these big technology clients that I've worked with. And there's a different one around, saying, I'm a children's book author. And the being a children's book author is infinitely more rewarding. And there's this joy, I feel, in these connections I'm making that is its own reward. It's self-validating, and it's enough. And I don't feel like there's anything else I should be doing with my time.
That's beautiful. I really love the fact that you're making so much of your content available for free, whether it's a book like Zoo or chapters of longer work. Was it just a philanthropic feeling that inspired you to do that? Not just. If I'm being totally honest, although the philanthropic impulse to share is definitely the most rewarding piece of it. There are just from the number of people I've heard from that have liked it, liked the stories that we've shared. So that's part of it. But there's also a marketing approach to it as well. And I don't know if it's in software marketing. It's a freemium solution where we're on a lot of businesses where you make a version of the product available for free, and then a smaller segment of potential customers will pay for other versions of it. And so I want to be able to do this work for the rest of my life. But I'm also thinking about what kind of business model is going to work. There's another odd little philanthropic impulse too. When I hear, I just feel like there's so much potential for creative work that people could unleash. So many people say, well, I've always wanted to write a kid's book, or I've written a kid's book. But it's hard to know how to make it happen. And the whole publishing machinery feels, to my perspective, kind of clunky. It's like, wait, what? You gotta wait for a year before the book is coming out, and you have to go through all these hoops. And to be honest, the economics aren't that great. Well, we're trying to, I'm working with a talented business partner. Bob is his name. And he gives a lot of thought to these sorts of things. So my hope is also that we can, create a model that works for us, but in doing so, share it with other writers and authors and give them ways to connect and make a living off of what they're doing. Yeah, absolutely. We've talked a lot about the fact that you are giving all this content away and making it available for free. We should probably let people know where they can get it.
Right, 320sycamorestudios.com. And for anybody who likes the movie It's a Wonderful Life, the name is an Easter egg from that movie. It's the address of the old Granville mansion.
Oh, I love that. I love that concept of Easter egg. I remember the first time I read it, and I'm like, Easter egg. I read that whole book. I don't know what they're talking about. And then it's like, oh, okay, yeah, I get it now.
Right. Well, we wrote we have so many projects going on. One we wrote was kind of a zombie fairy tale mashup, and that's going to be our series offering starting next year. But the Easter egg I put in there, well, there's a couple for grown-ups if they're reading it. One is a nod to the song Margaritaville by Jimmy Buffett, and another is a reference to Carl the janitor from The Breakfast Club. So yeah, I love Easter eggs too. I start my days just writing and messing around with words, and we've talked a lot about all the other stuff around it and the business and all that, but I just love getting up and writing. It is such a great way to start the day before I log on. It's just like 5:30. It's me. It's my coffee and, my journal and, seeing what happens. And it's sometimes not much and sometimes it's kind of miraculous.
Yeah. Hey, the maggot poem was so much fun. I'm just going to push my luck. Is there another fun poem you can share with us before we go?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know. Do you want to pick a letter or do you want me to pick one?
That's my beautiful wife. Her name is Sonia. Why don't we go with S?
Okay. S is for sloth.
Her favorite animal.
All right. Well, this is for her. Sloths sleep with ease. Sloths live in trees. Sloths move if asked. Sloths don't go fast. Sloths think great thoughts. Sloths grin lots. Sloths sleep and then sloths sleep. Zzz. There you go, sloth.
Awesome. We learned all about sloths while we're down in Costa Rica. It was great. My beautiful wife fell in love with them. She loved the fun fact that they only come down out of the trees once a week to pee. So.
I want to come back as a sloth, I think. They seem pretty content.
They do, yeah. When we were down there, our guide at the sloth sanctuary said sloths are not slothful. They got a bad rap. They are just energy efficient.
Yes, nice. That's a nice rebranding.
That's right, exactly. Hey, Jeff, tell everybody where, because I know that parents listening to this, especially at this time where we're all challenged, financially, they're going to want to go to be able to take advantage of some of that free content. But I think also authors are going to be really curious about the website and about the way your business model. So remind everybody again where they can go to learn more about you and the books and everything else coming from Jeff Williams.
Thank you. The best place to go is 320sycamorestudios.com, 320 Sycamore Studios. And you can find out everything. And I'm still learning, and I'd love to hear from people, and I'd love to share. And you can download Zoo for free on the site, and you can read all of our other stories online for free.
Awesome. We've had a great time talking to the author of Zoo, Jeff Williams. Jeff, thank you so much for being part of our show.
Thank you, Jed. I'm grateful, and I really appreciate you and the work you do.
Please be sure to join us for the next edition of the Reading with Your Kids podcast. Our guest will be coming to us from the United Kingdom. He is Aaron Francis, and he has an interesting story. He made the choice to publish his children's books first and only as audiobooks. It's a really fascinating choice. If you're an author, you definitely want to listen to it. And if you're a parent, you also want to check it out because audiobooks are fantastic. Great way to spend time in the van, choosing to listen to an audiobook instead of listening to some pop music that may not have some great messages in it. Check it out. That's the next episode of the Reading with Your Kids podcast. Want to thank the folks who made today's show so wonderful. Of course, we want to start with our guest, the squishy, squirmy zookeeper of the Zoo, Jeff Williams. Be sure to check out his book. I also want to thank my team, Fatima Khan, Alejandro Doherty. I want to thank my beautiful wife for all the support she gives me. I want to thank Augie the doggy for having my back here in the studio, keeping me safe. But most of all, I want to thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. Thank you so much for telling your family and your friends and your neighbors. Thank you so much for sharing our link on your social media posts. But most of all, thank you so very much for taking the time to make the world a better place by reading with your kids. I'll be looking for you in the next edition of the Reading with Your Kids podcast.